Critical update. Bitcoin, S&P 500, and DXY are on edge. And Mercury Retrograde is coming for all you astrology buffs out there. Welcome back to the Crypto Astro channel, bringing a radical, innovative new approach to crypto analysis, combining technical analysis with astrology. Please use caution in the comments below, as there are many spam bots, so please ignore those comments that are scams. But none of this content is financial or investment advice. This content is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. Okay, so we have just gotten another dump. Let's go on the daily. Yeah, so we did get a dump yesterday that quickly recovered. And then we're getting another dump today. We are teetering on this very important support level around 63,500. If we bounce above that, that can be bullish. But if we have multiple daily closes below that, that's very bearish, and we could be heading way back down to the 50s again if that's the case. So we're right on edge here. If I go to the 15-minute, we recently got this big dump here. I'm watching this very closely. What I did was I created a 50% line here, Fibonacci, from this local peak to the bottom here. So far we're looking okay. We want to hold above this green line here, this 50% level down there. So we dropped all the way to 62,500 approximately. We want to stay above 63,000. So far we're holding that level, but only time will tell. See how we continue. Let's zoom out a little bit. There was that big dump yesterday, and then we recovered, and now we're getting another dump. So just crazy choppy action, almost an exact repeat of what happened yesterday. So we'll see if we can get a similar recovery that we got yesterday. But so far, yeah, we want to see something like, we want to get out of the woods again, come back up. But if we get rejected and we go back down, that could cause a lot more trouble. Now, I also want to look at the monthly close. We recently got a monthly close. Let's clean this up. So the monthly close in July we just got was 64,000. So that's bullish. We closed above these lower levels here. These last monthly closes happened around 60,000, at least back in April. So we're way above that. That's good. We're seeing a bit of an uptrend, which is positive. We look at some of the other coins like Solana. Solana got a very bullish close all the way up here at 171. Ethereum monthly close, not as good, but not super bad either. Ethereum got a monthly close around 3,228. Then let's look at the S&P 500. Last month it closed pretty high, about 5,522. However, we're seeing this major dump here. Could this dump be something similar to that we saw back in April, or could it be a longer multiple month dump, which is also possible, that we saw in 2023 at a similar time, August, September, October? That's possible. Look at the Dow Jones, also getting a big correction so far. And the Russell still has not hit an all-time high, but it's starting to get up there. Typically, to see enough breadth in the market for Bitcoin to go off on a new all-time high, historically, every single time we need to see the Russell break out into a new all-time high. Now, as you know, the Dow Jones did and the S&P 500 did, but still not the Russell. So perhaps in order to have another crypto bull run, we need this Russell to break out to an all-time high to get past this orange or this purple line here. And that would give the green light, but we're seeing a big dump right now, so that is not in the cards right now. So what is going on in the markets? Why are we seeing this dump in the macro here? Not too crazy so far, but it could get more crazy. We'll see what happens. Potentially what we are seeing is what we just had is a release of the jobs report. And from the data that I've been looking at, this is what we got for the results. It was expected to get 176K non-farm payrolls, but we got 114K. That was much lower than expected. An unemployment report was much higher than expected. We got 4.23% versus the expected 4.1. So the tricky part here is that the markets are reacting to this. And if we look at the DXY is also dumping. Let's zoom in on the daily. Yeah. So DXY is dumping. And this is potentially because of the Fed funds rate is right now the Fed funds rate is at 525 to 550. But what is happening is the probabilities of cuts are now, it looks like 100% chance of cuts coming into the next month, which the next meeting date, I believe it looks like September 18th. I don't believe this has happened for the entire year. I don't believe we've had 100% chance of a cut because check this out. So there's a 31% chance that they're going to cut down to 500 to 525. And then a 68% chance they're going to cut even further to 475, 500. But then they don't even list the possibility that they're going to continue to pause. So I think this is the first time it's happened this year. So it looks like it's potentially guaranteed. Well, I guess nothing's ever guaranteed, but there's a 0% chance of pausing. But this is very interesting. They could cut double. They could cut 2 times at the next meeting. So it looks like the market's reacting to this. That would mean that we could be heading into the market, more government stimulus, more money printing. Because typically that's what happens when the market starts cutting rates. The rates go down. And then it's a potential for that money printer to go off on a run again. The good news is that could pump crypto to the moon. The bad news is potentially more inflation, and that's pretty bad news. But honestly, that is what I have been expecting all along. I personally, not financial advice, but I don't think there's any way to get out of this mess other than printing money. So the unfortunate news is that, could continue to make prices go up of the things that we're buying. However, it could also make crypto pump to the moon. Because, take a look at this, the DXY. So this is the strength of the dollar versus other currencies. Typically, when we get a big breakdown, let's see if I can draw this out. Yeah, literally the times that we get a big dump like this, that's when crypto went off on a mega run. Solana went from, I think it was like $80, $70 all the way to like 200 and something. Bitcoin went off on a crazy run. That's when the Bitcoin ETF was approved. Bitcoin went on a mega run. And then take a look at this. This literally marked basically the beginning of the bull run. Wait, let's see, actually. When the dollar was collapsing. Well, I guess it marked the beginning of the bull run. That's interesting. But crypto did pretty well after that dump in the DXY. But let's look back. Sometimes there's a lag, so it looks like the DXY was falling back in 2020. And actually, right when it bottomed out was when we went on a mega bull run. So the DXY was falling. So it looks like the DXY can fall for many, many months. And then afterwards, when it's low down here, last time was when the mega bull run happened in 2021. So I guess there can be some lag time. Similarly to this one, where it fell in the Bitcoin bear market in this area, but that once it started bottoming out here, was when Bitcoin started to go off on a run again. So we'll see what happens here. If you take a look at this trend line, this one right here, make it a little bit more bold. We're hitting that, we're bumping up against that trend line. And so that's potentially some major, well, let's see. It's either major support, or if it breaks through that, then it could fall down. So either it's going to bounce off of there, and that's certainly possible. Or soon, or in the next few months, maybe it'll break down and it could fall pretty considerably. And that potentially would be very bullish for markets and crypto. Okay, what else can we look at? Here's some more data. This is the volume 1 year seasonal pattern. So typically the New York Stock Exchange, typically there's a bit of a summertime lull for July, August. Looks like typically a pump in September. But yeah, we did get a pump in July. And now we're getting a dump right here. It kind of looks like this. So I wonder if we'll see something like this where we'll see a little bit of a correction before it falls off again in August. And that lines up perfectly with the astrology that second half of August we could see much more trouble, meaning a dump or downtrend in the markets as we're getting a lot of negative astrology. So that's really interesting. Another thing that actually first I want to show this one. So typically these are the Bitcoin average returns. Just like that other chart I showed you with the macro, typically August is very slow for Bitcoin, almost zero, and then September is even lower. And these are just the average monthly Bitcoin returns. It's not guaranteed that's exactly what's going to happen, but it's just the averages. But then we also look at this when we look at, this is from TIA Crypto. This is specifically for Bitcoin monthly returns historically. Typically, August can follow kind of similarly to what happened in July. But so we got green July, green August. Oh, so far we got barely a green July. So we'll see what happens in August. Last year we got red in July, red in August. 2021 we got green in July, green in August. 2020 we got green, green. But typically it looks like August typically does worse. Besides 2017, we got green, green. August did better. 2016, red, red. 2015, they were different. 2013, green, green. 2012, green, green. 2011, red, red. So many times August does worse than it did in July. But potentially similar. So if July is green, maybe we'll be green in August, but it's not guaranteed. But interesting data there. And this is from Jason, S&P 500 election year seasonal patterns. So I've been looking at this gold line. I've mentioned this multiple times, but the gold line is when we won't go down in April, up in May. That's what we did this year with the pink line. Down in April, up in May. But if we look at this gold line, it kind of flattens out. Little dump in August. potentially a further dump as well. It shows in September and even October, so that's interesting. So we could have more, whoopsies, potentially more downside to come or sideways action. But really, really interesting, I think this is the first time in a couple years where there's a 0% chance of a pause. So the cuts are coming. And what has happened historically when there's cuts, I looked into this a while back, typically, what I've found, this is a little too crazy here, shoot. Too crazy on that chart. What I've found is that typically when there are a little bit of cuts and then a recovery and then maybe a pause, Bitcoin doesn't correct too much. It just corrects a little bit. But if there are aggressive cuts, then Bitcoin does not like that. So there could be, in that case, if there's aggressive cuts, we could see more downside. Shoot, I think this chart is a little too busy here, but maybe you can see this. This is my main chart where I record everything. But so, for example, when there was aggressive cuts back in 2019, Bitcoin started to fall off over here. When there was just a little bit of cutting back in June 2012, Bitcoin still headed up, and it's a little bit hard to see. But you guys will just have to trust me on this one. When there's a little cut here, Bitcoin actually went off on a run. So if it cuts and then it pauses, that can be bullish. So that was interesting. But yeah, when those rate cuts get aggressive, Bitcoin tends to fall off. So that could be what we are seeing to come. So a lot of it depends on, oh, here we go. Now you can see it more clearly. When there's these aggressive cuts, Bitcoin just falls off back in 2019, 2020. And then the good news is when rate cuts are really low and they're just paused really low, and then they print massive amounts of money. The negative thing is that creates more inflation. Positive thing is it pumps crypto to the moon. It really does. But then let's see. Also back here, when there was aggressive rate cuts back in 2010, 2011, Bitcoin actually somehow continued to go up. But when rates are really at an extreme low, Bitcoin went off on a crazy run. And then when rate cuts started going back up again, it was a bear market. Then when they cut, let's see. This is kind of similar maybe to where we're at. They were overall pausing for a while. Then they aggressively cut. Bitcoin fell off. And then went off on a crazy run once rates were very, very low. So that's typically what we see with those rate cuts. So very, very interesting. What else can I show you? Let's just take a look where the market's at right now. Solana is holding up. I'm going to zoom in. Solana is looking a bit bearish right now. It's heading below the 50% level. Wow. Could we have another dump here? Bitcoin's still holding up relatively strong. Ethereum's holding up relatively strong. Interesting. Solana's starting to show more weakness. It's been so strong, but looks like Solana might be starting to fall off a bit. We'll see if it holds up. If it can get a bounce off of here, we don't want to go much lower, but if it can come back up, then that's good. But looking weak in the moment right now. Okay, Now let's take a look at the astrology, because that's what we do on this channel. What's to come with the astrology? The very, very interesting thing, haven't mentioned this yet, is that we're heading into, check out this planet Mercury right here. We're going to be heading into Mercury retrograde. Once this turns red, that's retrograde. Now, this might be a little bit similar. This is really the kind of how things are unfolding right now are reminding me of August of last year when markets dumped before Mercury retrograde, which happens sometimes. Typically with Mercury retrograde, we get a dump or consolidation for a while. About 70% chance we get that. It happens so often. And so this kind of what we're seeing right now with the price action. And we're getting a dump once again before Mercury retrograde, just a few days before. Like I'm saying, really reminds me what we were seeing. Let me clean this up. Back in August of last year, I think it was right around here. Yep. So the markets dumped before Mercury retrograde happened right around here. The market's first dumped before. It doesn't happen every time, but sometimes this happens. It's pretty unpredictable. And then markets just consolidated for a while. Heading into September, they just kind of lulled out before heading back up. So this is very, my opinion, a very great buying opportunity for me. So could we be seeing something like that again? We're getting a dump, maybe consolidation. But man, markets are on edge right now. Let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. Are we going to fall off a cliff, or is Bitcoin going to hold up here? It's showing some weakness. It's a little bit below the 50% level. That's a little concerning, but we're going to have to keep our eyes on this. I'm going to pull this line out here. Yep, a bit concerning. Do you guys think we're going back to the 50s, or are we going to bounce? No comments. Okay, we are live. So, astrologically, yeah, it could be a slow, choppy, volatile month this August. That's what I'm thinking. Because we do have the Mercury retrograde. Then middle of the month, we're getting Mars square Saturn. And then we're getting a crazy nasty full moon on the 19th. We're getting Jupiter squaring Saturn as well. We could see more crazy world events. More volatility, more risks of dumps in the macro markets. But it also could be a time of consolidation, more fearful events. So that's what I'm saying. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Definitely subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.